I saw a post on LinkedIn last week about how to cram 10 hours work into 2 hours, and honestly, it raised some serious red flags. So today I'm going to go through my workload review process, but first let's talk about why you shouldn't be trying to cram 10 hours work into 2. The first few tips in this post were actually quite helpful. So it was things like leaving your phone in another room or just away from you, and reducing distractions and interruptions. Now, I am all for both of these, but let's do a little bit of math. So even if you left your phone to the side or in another room, you might claim back, we'll say 2.5 hours of time. So now we've gone from 10 hours down to 7.5 hours. Then if you cut out interruptions and distractions, so you let people know that you're focused on really important work, and you set yourself up to be able to go without your own distractions for a period of time, you might get back another maybe hour and a half, even 2 hours. So we're going to be really optimistic here now and say that you've gotten from 10 hours down to 5.5. Now, how are you going to get from 5.5 down to 2? Without the use of technology, because we'll cover that in a minute. So these are your options. You can work really, really fast. You can not stop to go to the toilet or get a glass of water. You can literally try and cram and focus as much as you can on the work in order to do it as much as possible. And I am willing to bet that you won't get it all done. If you do manage to get the work finished, will it be the best quality? Will it be your best work? Will you be happy with it? Or will you find yourself coming back to revise it and update it and improve it later on? You see, it's all well and good to get things done quickly, but if they're not done right, you're going to end up redoing them anyway. Now, the second issue I have with this kind of approach, of course, is expectations. First of all, you're setting yourself up for failure. And, there's nothing worse than finishing a really, really busy day where you feel like you've been going nonstop and you haven't accomplished what you set out to do. You are setting yourself up for this outcome when you try to cram too much work into too little time. You're also setting bad expectations with other people. If you deliver work really, really quickly because you haven't been looking after yourself, people won't know that. So they'll expect that type of turnaround from you. They don't know how you work. They don't know your process. And honestly, they're too focused on their own work. All they know is that you turn around stuff really fast, and that's what they'll expect. So then next week, if you decide to work at a healthier pace, their expectations will be out of line with what you can deliver. Now, we mentioned technology, and of course, there are really good ways that you can reduce work from 10 hours down to 2, depending on the type of work it is. You can look at things like automation and AI, and even delegating to other people in order to take 10 hours of work and reduce it down to 2 hours of your time. But notice what we're doing here. We're bringing in additional resources. So there's always something extra needed. You either need the time or you need the resources. You can't just magic 10 hours down to 2. If you are looking at reducing your workload by delegating or embracing tech, I'm all for it. But of course, that needs to be planned so that it's successful and is implemented really well. Which means you're not going to wake up on a Monday morning, take a look at your to-do list and say, I'm going to delegate all of that today, or I'm going to automate all of that straight away. It takes a little bit of time. So again, manage your expectations. There's nothing wrong with work taking 10 hours if that's the length of time the work needs to take. Now, if the reason you're trying to reduce the amount of time you spend on work is because A, you're working too much unplanned overtime, or B, you want to make sure that you're creating room for some other type of work, then this is where my workload review comes in. It's all about making sure you are spending your time on the work that's most valuable. That means valuable to yourself and to your team and to the organisation. Knowing that, there'll always be some things that are left undone, and that's okay. You can be more confident that the things you are doing are the right things. So the workload review process is very straightforward, and I recommend that you do it every week. It's also a really good thing to do with your manager if you feel that you're out of sync in terms of your expectations. The first thing that you do is list all of your tasks. You probably have this already in a to-do list. So just take that, write down all of your tasks that are due perhaps in the next 2 weeks. You will adjust this time frame depending on the nature of your work and how long or short your work cycles are. Now, the next thing that you do is not to set the priority, because you're jumping the gun there. What you want to do instead is acknowledge how much work you've completed against those tasks already. There might be some things on that to-do list that you've already started. There might be some things that are 50% complete, 70% complete, 10% complete. So it's important to know this, because not everything is started from scratch. Now, next to that, you're going to want to estimate how much time will be required in order for me to finish the work. So, is it a small amount of time, maybe 5-10 minutes? Is it a medium amount of time, perhaps an hour or two, or a large amount of time, a whole day? And again, you can reset that relative sizing to suit your nature of work. What's small for me might not be small for you. But imagine this, you've got 2 tasks, and they look the same, but one is 50% complete and the other hasn't even started. The work remaining on both of them is maybe similar. You're going to look at these differently, because you might say, well, if I spend 2 hours on the one that's already started, it's completely finished. Whereas if I try to start the next task, it's going to leave me with 2 things half done. So this is where, understanding how much work you've done already and how much time remaining really helps you to understand your work and how you can make the best use of your time in the next couple of days. And then we're going to add in the impact. So what's the benefit or the reward of doing the work, and what's the risk if you don't do it in the time frame you originally decided? Okay. So the reward is pretty simple. So what good things happen if the work gets done? The risk is a little bit more complex, but not that difficult, I suppose. It's if you don't do the work in the time frame you decided. So let's say you decided that you were going to publish a report by Friday. What would happen if that report was published next Wednesday instead? Or what would happen if you gave that report to somebody else to publish, so it was still out on Friday? And just think through that so that you can understand the real impact of you doing or not doing the work in the time frame that you had originally intended. Now, if you have a list of maybe 10 or 15 of your top tasks and you've gone through this process, what you have now is a really clear picture of what your desk looks like. And this won't have taken you any longer than maybe 15-20 minutes. Now you can decide, based on the time you've available in the days ahead, what's the best use of your time. Are there things which are almost finished that you can just focus on, get it done, get it crossed off? Or are there a few items that haven't even been started yet, but the risk if you don't deliver them is much higher than the other pieces? Going through the workload review process won't cut your work down from 10 hours to 2, but it certainly will ensure that you're spending your time on the most important things, and then you can wrap up work on time after taking your breaks and ensure that you are confident that you're working on, as I said, the things that make the most difference. Now, just coming back to the very start of this, I do always recommend spending some time away from your phone during the workday. That will definitely help you focus and to get this work finished. And also letting other people know when you're working on very important work so that they won't interrupt you unless they really need it. So that's it. It's my quick tour of the workload review and my response to the idea that you should try to fit 10 hours work into 2. If you've any questions, let me know. And until next time, stay well and have a better workday.